And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Just wanted to show you really quickly where we are starting our program. So this is something that I wanted you to come into class with, where we have just our basic HTML elements up here. The ones I'm really looking for, do you have some sort of a header that has the name of our website, an image of your choice, 2 text boxes, 1 drop-down menu that currently has 1 option, and then 1 single button that says convert. And I think the big things that I wanted to point out so far, your text boxes, make sure that your text boxes both have ID variables. So this is again how we can identify each text box. The first one is going to be input, so that's why I named it ID input value. The second one is where we're going to put our final answer. That's why I named it ID output variable or value. And then also your select box needs to have an ID because we are going to need to grab onto it to identify what is currently selected in the dropdown. Right now there is only 1 option. There will be several others later on this week. So from here, we need to really kind of make 2 functions today. We need to make the convert function, which we'll actually do second, and we also need to make the function that actually does the converting. So let's start with the one that does the converting for us so we can go ahead and get this rolling. So here, the first thing I want you guys to do, you guys have your own task to try out here. Can you guys please write a descriptive comment for this function? So I'm going to give you guys some of the work to do. I can't do all of it for you. But let's write a function. This, I think an appropriate name would be something like binToDec or binary to decimal. And remember, if we are going to convert a binary number to a decimal number, the program will need to be able to accept some sort of a binary number from the user. So that is us deciding, in order to work, you need to give us the binary number first. Well, let's go ahead and start this. What I'm going to do is I am going to first take my binary number that I have, and I said we're going to split it into individual digits. So let's go ahead and make a variable. I'm going to call this a binary, let's call it a binary array. So this is technically going to be a list of individual digits. I'm going to take the binary number that they gave me in the parameters, and what we're going to do is split it up. How would you like me to split it up? Well, again, I mentioned in the notes, when we put just a set of empty quotations, it is saying split it by every single individual character. Well, after we do that, we would like to take, and you know what I kind of want to do? I kind of want to show you what this looks like, just so you have an idea of what this is. So I'm going to, nope, I lied. We're going to save it to the end. After we split our numbers into their individual digits and into their array, we need to go ahead and reverse it. So I'm going to take my binary array. We are going to reverse it. Boom. One thing I always suggest, if you are going to do something, store it back in its own variable. So this is us saying take the list, reverse it in order, but then once you're done doing that, store it back in its original variable. Overwrite what was already there for you guys. From here, now that we have our array in reverse order, it's time to start running through this thing. So we're going to go ahead and do 2 things. We are going to create a variable called decimal answer, and we're going to start this at 0. This is where we're going to grab the first digit, find its total value, and add it to this summation over time. While we are at it, I'm going to go ahead and I want to show you a cool strategy actually of how to incorporate going through an entire array inside your for loop. Let's go ahead and write the for loop real quickly. So I'm actually going to leave some comments here so we can remind ourselves of what these are doing. So we're going to call this a split array into individual indices. We reverse our array, store back in the same variable. This is right here is going to store our final answer. It's going to be a decimal value of some sort. And then let's get to the loop itself. So this is where we're going to loop through each individual digit in the binary number. Well, to write a for loop, we're going to start with the word for. We love the letter I, and we love starting it at 0. I'm going to leave this section blank for a second just because I do like to kind of reiterate how these loops work here. So when we have this and it starts at 0 and it goes up by 1s, here I know I can type I is less than something, and whatever this number is how many times it's going to run. Well, we would like this to run once for every digit that we have. What we can do is we can take our binary array and just find out how long are you. If there are 10 items in this array, well, this loop's going to run 10 times for us. Inside of this loop, I will kind of talk about what we have to do really quickly. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to break it down individually. We're going to grab the digit at index I. So it starts at 0, goes up by 1s. We're going to grab each digit individually. So what I'll do is I will write a variable for this. I'll say, let's grab the digit. Let's go ahead and go to our binary array. And let's go to index I. I have a number. It is either the number 0 or the number 1. But remember, in this array, since we read it from the text box, each of them is technically a word or a string. If we want to convert it into its numerical value, we can do that by just typing the word number and then surrounding that word version of it in parentheses. It's basically saying, give me the number version of this particular digit. So let's add that to my comment. Grab the digit at index I, convert to a number. Now what we have to do is actually calculate the value of that particular digit. So I'm going to, again, I like making variables. So I'm going to write digit value here. And we're going to take the digit we just grabbed individually, and we are going to multiply it by a value. Now, I know for a fact this is going to be 2 to the 0 power, the first iteration. But as mentioned in the notes, we can utilize our I variable here because it's like 2 to the 0, the first iteration, 2 to the first, the second iteration, so on and so forth. Don't forget that technically using 2 stars is how we can utilize exponents in our computers. Once I have the final value of that particular digit, it is just me needing to add that to my total decimal answer. So I come through, I grab my decimal answer, I add onto it whatever my digit value was that we just calculated the line above. So let's go ahead and add some comments in here really quickly. For this line, we are multiplying, helps if I spell right, the digit by its place value. And the last thing we are doing is adding the digit value to the total. Let this for loop run its course. The beautiful thing about them is you really only have to worry about the first iteration, and every iteration will do its own job after that. Once that for loop is finished and complete, we will have a final answer stored in this decimal answer variable. We just need to give that back to our user. So we're going to say, can you please return this decimal answer that I just worked so hard to do? Ladies and gentlemen, this function will take a binary number and give you back a decimal answer. But your program still won't work right now. If you Alt B and you run this sucker, unfortunately, you could type in 110111 and click your button and ain't nothing going to happen. The main reason is we need our convert function to work. And I'm actually not going to write this function for you. I will start it for you because this is the button that's going to run, or the function that's going to run when we click our button. I will give you some good comments for it though, because this is going to be really similar to our calculator project that we just did on Friday of last week. So we're going to make a new function called convert. And here's what I'm going to have you do. Number one, you guys are going to go ahead and read all the data that you need to. Specifically, there are two things that you need to read. You need to read and store the contents of the first text box. This is where someone is going to be typing something in. I'm going to be typing something in right here. We need to read that as a word, basically grab the value of it. The second thing that we need to do, we need to read and store the currently selected drop-down item. This again is us going to this drop-down menu. It has its own ID, grabbing the value of it so that we have it stored somewhere. And again, you want to put that in a second variable. After we have those two things, we need to start testing because we're going to have multiple things in our drop-down menu. So the first thing that we're going to do, or I should say, third thing we are going to do, we're going to utilize if and else if statements to test what is selected. And this is again similar to our calculator task where we said if the drop-down menu was a plus symbol, then I want to do these things. Otherwise, if the drop-down menu was a minus symbol, then there's something else I might want to do. So we're going to have a bunch of if statements inside of here. For each of those if statements, and for this one in particular, we'll only have one of them, you're going to basically say, if my drop-down says base 2 to base 10. Well, if it does, I have this awesome function up here that can convert it into a binary number or a decimal number. So what we're going to do is you're going to, inside of that if statement, call the binary to decimal variable or a function that you have and feed it the contents of the first text box. You have that stored in a variable. That came from step number 1 of this function. So you call the function, you feed it the number. It is going to give you back a final answer. It's going to be a decimal number. Store the return value in a variable. So you'll have something stored like final answer. Let final answer equal a function call to this. Last but not least, once you have your final answer, don't forget you have to actually display said final answer. And that is where we're going to utilize the second text box this time. You are going to display the converted answer in the second text box. Take note, if you are putting something in a text box, it is very similar to what you do putting something in a divider. The only difference, if you are placing something in a text box, you're grabbing the value of that text box and you are changing it. So you are saying something along the lines of ID output value dot value. So the name of this thing dot value, and then you're setting it equal to whatever that function call to binary to decimal actually gave you back. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a very short function, but I wanted to give you guys a good set of tips on these. Make sure to help each other out around the classroom. Stay off of your phones. Make sure you guys are only strictly doing business in this class today. And I will see you guys on a video for Friday. Take care.